Hello, I am Xarkun. This is World of Warships Legends, and today I want to talk more about my thoughts on aircraft carriers post-testing. So, depending on when I release this video, the testing will either nearly be finished or completely concluded. And right off the bat, I want to get to 3 changes I think I would like to see made for either the next test event iteration or for when CVs are fully integrated into the game. And there are only 3 changes that I would really like to see made. The first is I think CVs should be able to set waypoints for their ship to move into position. Now, initially, I thought controlling the CV between plane squadrons might function as a method for balancing them, but I actually now think it kind of makes it impossible to correctly position a CV and send plane squadrons out against the enemy team in the most effective way. In the current state, or in their current state, I'm not actually convinced that CVs are a viable class, and I think this change would make them a viable class. And that is, in fact, the only change I think is necessary for making them a viable class. Nevertheless, change 2. So the game deals out rewards like XP and credits for things like spotting, dealing damage, and capping the cap points. It seems to me like capping is given a heavy weight when it comes to scoring, and it seems like defending caps is also very lucrative. But it seems like whenever I play a CV, no matter how well I think I'm doing, the XP and credits received are both abnormally low. I wonder if anything needs to be retooled for the CV class in terms of doling out XP and credits. Perhaps XP gained for spotting enemy ships should be increased for aircraft carriers, since this, in my opinion, is their most important job. Maybe you should gain a big XP bonus if you spot an enemy ship and your teammates damage or sink it. Of course, I'm not sure about this one. I don't know exactly how XP is allocated, and it could just be that I'm a total noob potato with carriers and I don't know what I'm doing, so higher XP games will come in time. But whatever the reason, it really does seem to me like the XP and credit output for CVs is low. Maybe Wargaming should look at that, especially since CVs don't actually function like any surface ship, and therefore their ability to gain XP and credits will be different from any surface ship. And finally, number 3, I like the fact that enemy surface ships firing their AA at your planes does not cause them to be spotted. I think that is a very good thing for balance, especially with destroyers. However, if your planes come under fire from destroyer AA, it is very easy to locate the source of that fire, fly directly above it, and spot the enemy destroyer. Therefore, I think all surface ships should be given the ability to toggle their AA on and off. I said in a previous carrier video that destroyers still seem to be the general spotting unit for the team, since they spot enemy ships according to those ships' surface detectability, which seems to be in all cases a much larger spotting radius than their detectability by air. CVs, therefore, in my opinion, are what I call surgical spotters, as distinct from the general spotting role of destroyers. And surgical spotting works very well for revealing the positions of enemy ships that are unspotted, but also known to be in a particular area of the map. So basically, if a friendly destroyer spots an enemy destroyer, and then the enemy destroyer disengages and goes dark, the carrier player can fly his planes near the enemy destroyer's last known position on the map and spot it relatively easily. I think that is actually as close to perfect as you could make the spotting balance between carriers and destroyers, but I think it's too easy right now for carriers to spot destroyers when destroyers don't have the ability to turn off their anti-aircraft guns. So I would like to see that changed. But those are really the only changes I think are necessary. And I want to address what I've seen other people asking for. So I've seen other people ask for increased damage output and different armament types on aircraft carriers, such as rocket planes. But I think increasing carrier damage output and adding rocket planes would be a mistake. In my video essay on CVs pre-launch, I laid out the case that CVs, from the standpoint of how they interact with enemy surface ships, have an inherently unfair advantage, and that is still completely true. Picture, if you will, the aircraft carrier as a surface ship, and its planes as either its guns or torpedo launchers. What you are essentially doing when you send out a squadron of planes is detaching your armament from your ship, giving it unlimited range, and using it to both spot and do damage. Whenever you spot or damage an enemy, you are threatening their hit points and therefore their ability to remain in the game. When the enemy surface ship shoots down your planes with its automatic anti-aircraft guns that it cannot control in the way that you can control your planes, the only thing they're actually doing is increasing your reload time. That seems to me to be a fundamentally unfair interaction based on interactions between all surface ships and how they work. In principle, I don't think there is any way to correct this fundamental imbalance, but making it difficult to do damage with aircraft carriers actually seems to be a good compromise. Given that you never have to risk your ship in order to attack an enemy when you are using an aircraft carrier, I firmly believe that it should be difficult for you to do damage. Your ability to spot important scoring units like destroyers more than makes up for your relative inability to deal big damage numbers. But as far as dealing big damage numbers go, I am fully convinced that it is possible. It is true that the alpha strike of torpedo bombers and dive bombers is fairly anemic, although dive bomber alpha strike really isn't that anemic. It just seems that way because you only drop 2 bombs. In any case, the alpha strike, we'll just say it's anemic, but the ability to stack passive damage by lighting perma fires or creating permanent floods is still present, and that is going to have to be your method of dealing a lot of damage. The alpha strike of torpedo bombers and dive bombers is, in my opinion, totally sufficient for dealing with cruisers and destroyers, provided you can hit them, and I recognize that it is hard to do that, since their lack of armor and torpedo protection allows both your bombs and torpedoes to do more damage to them. On battleships, however, the results are usually much smaller, so you have to rely on stacking fires and floods, and that, in my opinion, is fine. But it is difficult to do that when you can't position your CV the way you want to, which is why I say the ability to set waypoints for the CV should be added. It will make it easier to get the CV into an advantageous position where you can quickly send out waves of planes at a target and attempt to set permanent fires and permanent floods. Again, it won't be an easy thing to do that, but I do think that is how it should be. And for those of you who say it is too difficult to hit cruisers or destroyers with dive bombers and torpedo bombers, you can see here as we dive down against this enemy Yahagi, who actually seems to have pretty fierce anti-aircraft firepower, we are able to hit him, and he is being controlled, or he is rather a real player. We take him out there. That's the only kill of the game we're actually going to get, and we did it against a cruiser with our dive bombers and torpedo bombers. That just leaves an enemy destroyer left, and the reason I wanted to show you this game for this discussion is because of this last sequence with the enemy destroyer. Take a look at him. It's a Fubuki being played by a real player versus a friendly Fubuki also being played by a real player. The two of them are shooting each other right now. Enemy Fubuki has left his smoke screen and therefore left concealment. But he is sailing toward this island, and I believe he wants to put this island between himself and my teammates in order to go dark. And in fact, right about at this point, he would be going dark because he'd be breaking line of sight. But my planes are flying over him right now and keeping him spotted. He can't go dark. He left his smoke screen, and he doesn't have another one to put up right now. Ignore the bad drop there on the Fubuki. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter that I can't hit him because my teammates are still in a position to hit him, and in order to prove to you that I am spotting him, look at what happens. He goes dark, but I know generally where he is, and as soon as his anti-aircraft guns open up again, I know exactly where he is. This time I'm going to get a much better attempt at a drop, but I'm going to completely miss. Still, friendly ships are shooting at him, and I believe they are going to end up taking him out. The reason they're able to do that directly is because I am spotting him. And this is why I say the ability to do this more than makes up for the anemic damage output and the relative difficulty of dealing damage to destroyers. But I think that's all I have to say on CVs for now. Let me know what you think about CVs after the test in the comments section below. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I will see you next time. Goodbye.